Humans and primates have always been linked together in research, films, arts, and even in physiological aspects. The study of spontaneous voice-face identity matching by rhesus monkeys for familiar conspecifics in humans, done by Julia Sliwa and her colleagues, looks at another way in which we can compare human characteristics to our closely related primate species, specifically rhesus monkeys. So the study focuses on rhesus monkeys and assesses their ability to cognitively represent identity recognition. And this is quite interesting because if the monkeys can showcase the ability to create an identity for relatives and other species, then the gap between human brain ability and primitive brain ability becomes even smaller. Wouldn't it be crazy to know that a monkey can not only distinguish you as a human, but also be able to single you out as a specific individual from a group of multiple species? Julia Sliwa and her fellow researchers constructed a hypothesis that rhesus monkeys would be able to exhibit the ability to identify recognition for individuals due to ecological relevance based on past findings from previous research. So looking at past studies done about rhesus monkeys, Sliwa determined that the rhesus monkeys were able to distinguish between the calls of two different conspecifics. So a conspecific is a member of the same species. They were also able to single out faces of two different conspecifics, and they can distinguish a human face from a conspecific face. What all of these characteristics show is that rhesus monkeys own the understanding of differentiating between and within the same species and among other species. Researchers from past studies have found that these characteristics are vital to the rhesus monkey species since they travel in large groups. The rhesus monkeys are able to distinguish between kin, alliances, and threats within their species due to these cognitive recognition capabilities. So what we can expect if the findings from the study support the hypothesis of rhesus monkeys being able to exhibit representation identity is that the monkeys' brains are at an advanced level when it comes to cognition. It will reveal another level of brain capability in monkeys, and it allows us to understand and connect our own brain to a different species. We as humans tend to believe that our cognitive capabilities are far superior to any other species, but this study could potentially close the gap between the human and primitive species. Sliwa and her colleagues designed a study directed towards an evaluation of adult rhesus monkeys' ability to recognize individuals as conspecifics in humans. The subjects were exposed daily to the same rhesus monkeys in humans from infancy to adulthood. The researchers used a cross-modal approach to inspect individual recognition. Cross-modal is a perception that includes the interactions between two or more different sensory modalities. They use both the face and vocals of the rhesus monkeys and humans for the subjects to identify with. So first, the researchers allowed the subjects the opportunity to match noises that they hear with pictorial content, specifically pictures, and then they tested whether or not the picture was ample enough for the rhesus monkeys to recall the correct individual. So the researchers hypothesized that if the monkeys did indeed have a cross-modal representation of known individuals, then they would by choice successfully match the picture and the voice they identified it with. So what the data shows us is that the monkeys were in fact successful at pairing the correct photograph to the noise that they heard. An interesting statistic that came up was that it took the subjects a significantly longer time to match the voice to the correct human compared to them matching the correct voice to the other familiar rhesus monkeys. Nonetheless, the findings of the study support and confirm the hypothesis that monkeys exhibit a cross-modal recognition of both conspecifics and humans. The data collected from the study is considered quantitative because it can be quantified. It is also susceptible to statistical manipulation, and instead of describing, it defines. The study is an example of one that uses an active measurement setup. The researchers set up subjects to have daily exposure to the same humans and rhesus monkeys for years. This manipulates the setup because the rhesus monkeys already have prior exposure to the humans in rhesus monkeys. Instead, the researchers could have forced the rhesus monkeys to perform their skill of cross-modal identity recognition spontaneously rather than exposing them to the humans and other rhesus monkeys for years. So the prediction was that if the rhesus monkeys were able to distinguish amongst their own species, and also have the ability to identify humans as a different species than their own, then they should possess the ability to recognize the identity of any individual cross-modally. So when the data is compared to the prediction made, we can see that it in fact confirms the stated prediction. The data highlights that the rhesus monkey's ability to recognize the identity of an individual regardless of its species, confirming the idea of cross-modal cognition in rhesus monkeys. So applying the aspect of auxiliary hypothesis from the Quine-Duhem thesis to the study makes it tricky, in fact, to confirm the main hypothesis. There are many confounding aspects of the study that can influence the statistical results and ruin the validity of the study. The researchers cannot just focus on the main hypothesis on its own. Instead, they must look at auxiliary hypotheses such as the rhesus monkeys not being disformed, their brains are all built the same way physiologically, and that they haven't been exposed to previous studies that pertain to identity recognition. There are many auxiliary hypotheses present in the study, and in order to draw a conclusion from the test results, these auxiliary hypotheses must be all assumed to be true. If just one auxiliary hypothesis is deemed as invalid, then the researchers will get a different result than what they are looking for, which in turn disconfirms their hypothesis. In other words, if just one auxiliary hypothesis are not true, when you assume them to be true, it ruins the possibility of drawing a claim from the test results or conclusions. So auxiliary hypotheses also give theories a sort of extra life because it is easy to blame the unexpected outcomes upon auxiliary hypotheses rather than disconfirming the main theory itself. If, for example, the researchers found out that one of the rhesus monkeys they were experimenting upon was blind when they thought that it had full vision, this would invalidate the study that they conducted, and they could blame the unfavorable results on this blind monkey. Instead of inferring that all rhesus monkeys do not hold the trait of identity recognition, they can infer that blind rhesus monkeys specifically do not have the trait of identity recognition. So the next time that they run a study, they must control for this auxiliary hypothesis in order to attain true test results. The second aspect of the Quine-Duhem thesis is that it's vital to have a crucial experiment that can choose between two opposing theories. So with crucial experiments, we use observational evidence to confirm one theory and disconfirm the other opposing theory. So when we look at the example of Sliwa's study, their hypothesis is that rhesus monkeys can recognize identity cross-modally. So the competing hypothesis would be considered to be that rhesus monkeys cannot recognize identity cross-modally. Another way to look at this idea of two opposing hypotheses is by taking a statistical view by creating a null and an alternative hypothesis. So the goal with the crucial experiment is to confirm the null hypothesis, the main hypothesis, by finding evidence that supports it. The alternative hypothesis, the opposing theory, must also be disconfirmed due to the lack of evidence to support it, which is also known as underdetermination. If we were to confirm the main hypothesis, then we would expect to see the rhesus monkeys correctly matching individuals' pictures to the noises they hear. If we were to disconfirm the main hypothesis and confirm the opposing hypothesis, we would expect for the rhesus monkeys to be unable to correctly match individuals' pictures to the noise that they hear. The researchers' observed results are that the rhesus monkeys were able to correctly match the individuals' pictures to the noises that they hear. So this finding confirms the expected outcome of the main hypothesis, and it disconfirms the opposing theories the opposing theory's outcome. However, when you connect the aspect of auxiliary hypotheses to the aspect of crucial experiment, we cannot truly disconfirm the opposing theory in its entirety. Instead, we fail to find sufficient evidence to support the opposing theory because the alternative outcome did not occur. This whole process makes Sliwah's theory adequate. It's considered adequate because it's falsifiable and it survives many precarious experiments and obstacles. We can accept Sliwah's theory for now until there's enough information/data that confirms the findings of Sliwah's study.